did I find? My second 5-star read of the year? I don't know. It's close. I'm waffling. Let's get to it. Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a 1001 book countdown for you. If you're not familiar with the 1001 book countdown, I will leave a card up here for you where you can go and check out the original video. But basically, I'm reading books off of the 1001 books you must read before you die list. And I combined all editions together, which is actually more like 1,300 books. But I have been reading off of this list for a number of years, and I have read well over 300 books now. So yeah, it's been a fun project, a passion project of mine for a number of years. And I just started a couple of years ago documenting it out here on YouTube. It's been a blast. I've made more progress in the last 2 years than I have made in the last 5. So, but for today, what we will go ahead and do is put up the numbers, which are 889, which is the main number I have left out of 1001, made it into the 800s, feeling pretty good about that. And then every year at the beginning of the year, I pre-select 52 books, which I like to try and focus on, and I track those separately so I can see the number move. And the goal is to always get this number to 0. It is currently at 48. I'm a little behind. I know I'm a little behind, but I'm just going to go with it. So, yeah, we'll see how it ends up at the end of the year. I have not made it to 0 in any of the years that I've been documenting out here on YouTube. So we'll see. We'll see. But the first book that I am going to actually talk about today is my 1001 book club pick for February, and it is A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mistry. Oh boy. Okay. This book was, I'll get the book details out of the way and then start talking about my feelings about it. This book was originally published in 1995, and it is one of 3 of Rohinton Mistry's novels. And out of the 3 novels that they have published, 2 are actually on the 1001 book list. And this is one, and this is the other, Family Matters. I have not read this one. I have just finished this one. So yeah, really interesting that 2 of the 3, I'll have to look up the 3rd book and see what it's all about. But A Fine Balance, what is A Fine Balance all about? Well, this book is incredible, I will say right now. I had a friend of mine who said, it's a great book, but they didn't like it. And I completely understand that sentiment after having read it. So I'll try and work through my feelings about this particular book without giving spoilers. Very tough to do, but I will try and not give spoilers for this. So this book is set in India in 1975, and there's 4 main characters in this story and then a bunch of supplemental characters. But the first one is Dina, who is the apartment owner, and then there's 2 tailors, and then there's a student. And so all 4 of them, how the book really starts out is them meeting at Dina's apartment. And so she is trying to hire the 2 tailors, and the student is going to come and be a boarder in her home. And that's really how you get to start the story, is really very light introduction to them. And then you get to chapter 1, and chapter 1 is all about Dina in the current time, and then I think it's in chapter 2, goes into her backstory. And oh my gosh, her backstory was so compelling. It made me sympathize with Dina. It made me say, wow, she is incredibly strong with everything that she had been through. And I wanted just wonderful things for her after reading that first part of the chapter, or first couple of chapters. In the next part, we really get a deep dive into the 2 tailors. And in the beginning, I wasn't sold on them. I mean, as far as like how good they were for Dina. And then we get their backstory, and man, their backstory is brutal. Absolutely brutal. There's a lot of oppression of the caste system in India. There is political corruption, manipulation, forced labor. It's just horrific. And if you go against the government, bad things would happen to you. And that's a lot of what centers around the Taylor story. And then the student had a really interesting backstory as well. That's where it goes next. And we start getting that deep dive into his story. And then it comes back with all 4 of them again. And it's so hard. I mean, this is not a happy book. I think that's why my friend said, it was a great book, but she didn't like it because I wanted different outcomes. I wanted it not in a negative way. I was rooting for the characters. I was sympathizing with the character. I mean, I was really feeling all these emotions while reading this book, and the political oppression, the forced labor, the forced, I don't even want to say what it is because it would be a huge spoiler. It is incredibly, incredibly powerful book. And I know how much I was really into this book by how much I was talking out on Discord. I was putting comments out there almost constantly for the first several chapters because I could not put this book down. And then about 3/4 of the way through, it introduced this weird aspect to it that I was super frustrated with and didn't really understand why this other character was in there. I'm sure I'm missing some of the undercurrents or the subtext in relation to that character, but it just kind of went a little bit weird there. And then I was devastated by how it ended. And that's all I'll say about the ending, because I think if you read it knowing what the ending is, I think it would ruin I think it would ruin a lot of the book. So, but, oh, so maddening, mad at some of the characters and how they were treating the other characters. Absolutely, really, really well done. I wouldn't say that the writing style is like superb necessarily, but it was so well done. And I just, man, I still have thoughts about this book, still have thoughts about how it ended. I am so thrilled that I read it. I don't know how I missed this book all along because, wow, it really did add something to my reading this year. And I had been waffling at 4.5, 5 stars. And you know what? I think it really does deserve a 5-star now that I'm kind of just thinking about it and reflecting back on it, because there's so much I still think about and so many aspects of this that I still find disturbing. So many pieces of it that, it's like I just wanted in the beginning to give some of these characters a hug and try and help them in some way. And I think that was brilliant. The character development, the character arcs that they went through, all truly incredible, even though I won't give you a spoiler. I'm trying really hard not to give spoilers. Okay. But with this book, have I convinced you to read this book? I'm super curious. Did you read it with the book club? I know several people did, and there were a lot of comments out on Discord. It's the most commented book I've had out on Discord by far. Okay. It didn't really give me a book hangover, but I'm still thinking about it. So, but with this book, we get to go from 889 to 888, and it was thankfully on my 2023 list. So that number gets to go from 48 to 47. Yay, hooray. I'm still behind, but that is a fine balance. Definitely let me know what you think about this book. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Wow. I'm still thinking about it. So a fine balance. All right. The next book, I do have a second book. Yay! The next book is a buddy read that I did with Tiffany over at Beautiful Minutia. And we read Pere Goriot. You can't tell from this beautiful cover that is what this book is, by Balzac. And so Balzac, this particular book was published in 1835 as a serial and then converted, I believe, a couple years later into a bound book. And I can see how it was a serial based on how it was broken out. And so the main character, the namesake, Pere Goriot, or Papa Goriot, I think is another title, is an interesting character. He is living in a boarding house and is paying rent as he lives there, and is slowly having to downgrade his finances and have it pay less and less, and is moved in different floors where he has to pay less and less money. It's really his story, and as far as and a couple of other characters. There's a character whose name is Eugene, who plays a central role in this, and in both in his own story in this book, and also in how he interacts with Pere Goriot. One thing I will say is that this book was set in 1819 Paris, I believe. It was set in 1819. I think it was in Paris. And it didn't feel like that. I don't know if it's this translation. It didn't feel dated. Some of the things that were being said and done in here, other than like one aspect of it, felt like it could have been 10 years ago. And so I thought that was really interesting with this particular book. I did like it quite a bit. I didn't like it as much as A Fine Balance. I found myself frustrated with Pere Goriot and the decisions that he was making in this particular book. The decisions that would ultimately bring about some very negative things for him. Also, his two daughters, which were just horrific as far as what they were doing and how they were treating their father. And yeah, I didn't read a lot of happy books, is what I would say in February. It's a month of love, and I did not read a lot of happy books. But I did find this one really, really interesting. Plus, this book is just so well done. Oh, there's a book. Look, there's a bookmark. Very, very well done. I enjoyed this one, like I said, quite a bit. And thank you so much to Tiffany for reading it with me. It was my first Balzac. Still on the fence of what I'll think about this author overall. But with this book, we do get to go from 888 to 887. And it was on my 2023 list. So we get to go from 47 to 46. Technically, at the end of February, I should be at either 44 or 43. It is what it is. And so what am I working on right now? Nothing. I am not reading a single 1001 book right now. I am not reading that because I'm still trying to finish the books that I had on my February TBR, which were The Candy House by Jennifer Egan. You can see there is a bookmark in here. I'm about a third of the way through. It's a very fast read. I saw some weirdness in the formatting coming up, and so I'm not sure about that one. But this was my TBR tackle spin book selection. So I am making progress on this one. I am also still working on, I'm still reading Tigana by Guy Gavriel Kay. This was my subscriber favorite pick that I picked up for February, and I'm doing this as a buddy read with Jack over at Spread Book Joy, Gemma from Gemma Books, and Dia at Novel Idea. And it has been wonderful getting to chat with these lovely ladies every single day. It has been really added to my experience of reading this book. I'm going to withhold what I think about this until my February wrap up, but I am still reading this one. And then I am still reading I'm obviously still working on the BookTube Prize. I am reading Eating to Extinction, and I am, as you can see, I'm a little over a third of the way through this particular book, and can't wait to talk about this one when I do my rankings. I can't share really anything about it now since it is for the BookTube Prize. And that's what I have in flight. The goal would be to finish Candy House and Tigana this weekend, and hopefully that BookTube Prize book. But that's still a lot of pages, so we'll see. But I don't know that I'll be able to pick up any other 1001 books in February for sure. And then the one I have in March is Les Miserables, and I don't have any others selected. It's my primary read in March. So I don't know how the countdown will do in the next few weeks unless I decide to pull in a really short book. I don't know. It'll be an interesting March, but yeah, I am a little bit behind if I was trying to keep to any kind of real schedule. But I think that's it. Yeah. I'm really happy with the books that I did end up reading in February. There were a couple I had hoped to get to, but it just didn't happen, and I'm okay with that as well. They were library books, so I don't have them to share with everyone. But that's really it. What are you reading? Have you read either of these two books? Please definitely tell me in the comments what you think of A Fine Balance. I know it's Scott over at Gunpowder Fiction and Plots, one of his favorite books, and I can see why. But like I said, if you read it, go into it knowing it's not a happy book, and there's a found family aspect to it, but it is devastating in places and very, very, very hard to read in places. So, but I still would recommend it with those caveats. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, thanks. Bye.